Object.
Hey guys, it's Debbie and welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if you're new, for another edition of Paralegal Reacts. Today we are going to discuss closing arguments made by Johnny Depp's team. Let's talk about how it went and also the major lie Amber was caught in on the stand that Johnny's team didn't see or mention. So let's get into it. So Mr. Sherborne made sure to make it clear that the cause of action was the article printed in the Sun newspaper by Dan Wooten titled Gone Potty. How can J.K. Rowling be genuinely happy casting wife-beater Johnny Depp in the new Fantastic Beasts film? In the article, Mr. Wooten stated that there was overwhelming evidence that Mr. Depp engaged in domestic violence against his wife, Amber Heard. Mr. Wooten even went so far as to call on J.K. Rowling to recast the role, despite the film already having been shot and being due for release. He claimed that the allegations were so serious that it would justify a cost of millions for such a last-minute reshooting of the film. The irony is, the cost of millions may actually go to Dan Wooten and the stars should Johnny win this defamation case. But apparently, actually, they don't give a lot of money for defamation in the UK, so I don't know, who knows. The article even said that Depp paid Heard $7 million in hush money, despite the award being for a divorce settlement. The article even said that Johnny was not fit to work in the film industry. So in other words, it was a very calculated hit piece, and they knew what they were doing. The Sun could have simply reported both sides, which is what most ethical journalists do. And I don't really get why. I mean, I do a little bit, seeing as the Sun has ties to Tesla and Elon has a huge hate-on for Johnny. That could explain why they insist on pushing this narrative to the bitter end. Mr. Sherborne brought up the media circus that was caused when Heard went to the courthouse to file the temporary restraining order. Via text to her friend Io, we know that she had prior knowledge the media would be there, and she by no means was required to attend, by the way, but on the stand she insisted that she wanted everything to remain private. But then, if you want it to be private, why'd you invite TMZ? Doesn't make sense. In this case, the burden of proof was on the defendant, meaning that the Sun had to prove that Johnny was a wife-beater. And since this is an allegation of serious criminality, the court requires a higher degree of proof. That means that before the court will find someone guilty of a serious criminal offense, there should be compelling evidence which should be clear, consistent, and forceful. Basically, Johnny should be presumed innocent until defense can prove otherwise. I was actually really hoping they would discuss the staircase incident and the fact that Amber said Johnny beat Whitney with his cast, because for some reason that never came up again. Whitney never mentioned it on the stand and she was never questioned about it. I think that was a bit of a missed opportunity, to be honest, because I think Whitney being cross-examined on how Johnny could have beat both her and Amber with his soft cast and a severed finger, that would have been interesting to see. Or even Amber saying how he had her by the hair with one hand and punching her with the other. He wouldn't have been able to clench his hands to grab her hair because his fingertip was severed and it was in a soft case. So it's not like he could beat on her with the hard plaster. It was a soft cast, sorry. And he would have had the use of only one hand, so that would have been physically impossible, in my opinion. Sherborne discussed the medical records of Amber and how she would reject or accept certain parts of the records to suit her narrative. She would at times say that her medical notes were a result of the doctor and or nurse speaking with Johnny and were hearsay. The defense even used the term double hearsay in their closing argument skeleton, which is a new one to me, which it makes no sense. A doctor or nurse would not modify your medical records in any way, shape, or form without you being present for an examination. They talked about the police officers who came to the penthouse, twice apparently, and saw no injuries or any damage to the penthouses. Amber wanted the police to be called, but she didn't want to file a report. And on the contact form, it discussed verbal abuse by Mr. Depp. It didn't mention physical abuse, according to Sherborne. And after the police left, Amber had her friends take photos of her injuries, but couldn't the cops have done that? They could have made a note of what they found or discussed, which would have given her concrete proof if the police officers had corroborated her story. But the cops said she had no injuries whatsoever. Actually, you want to know what else Amber did after the cops left? According to Sherborne, she called 3 different people. She called her lawyer, Samantha Spector, her publicist and her makeup artist. Like, why though? The lawyer I can see, I kind of maybe, but publicist and makeup artist, I don't know, girl. But of course, the doctors were lying, the nurses were lying, police officers were lying, the building staff was lying. Sherborne stated that Amber was at pains to repeat her mantra of, "I'm not here to call anyone a liar," and that she believes herself to be right no matter what. And if it looked like something incriminating against her would come up, it was always somebody else's fault. Really, Johnny's fault, to be honest. And it really made me think of the narcissist prayer. I don't know if you've ever seen that, but it goes like this. A narcissist prayer. That didn't happen. And if it did, it wasn't that bad. And if it was, that's not a big deal. And if it is, that's not my fault. And if it was, I didn't mean it. And if I did, you deserved it. Sherborne also reminded us that there were several witnesses that actually saw Amber be abusive towards Johnny. And those are first-hand witnesses that aren't Whitney Heard. And then we discussed the 3-day hostage situation in Australia, where she had an iPhone and an iPad, and she could have called somebody or even an Uber or taxi, or she could have just walked out. And she admits that herself. Like, she could have literally just left. To be honest, I was shocked they didn't bring up the biggest example of Amber busted in a lie while on the stand. One day she said that she was sleeping while Johnny injured his finger and didn't see it happen, and she basically woke up to him injured. The next day when she was on the stand, she said that she saw it happen and she was there, and Johnny severed his finger by punching her and punching the wall. So, which is it, girl? Did you see it or not? Literally from one day to the next, her story completely changed, and I was shocked that, I don't know if they didn't pick up on it or what, but I haven't really heard anyone talk about it, and it's nuts because to me that was the biggest red flag because it's such a big thing, the severing of his finger. How can you not remember? How can you go from not being there to being there? You would remember, you know? So that to me is the biggest smoking gun in terms of obliterating her credibility as a witness. They brought up Savannah McMillan, which is the alleged assistant, which was working for her under the table, allegedly. They brought up the letter that was written to Homeland Security about Savannah. When Amber was questioned about that letter, she said that Savannah wrote it and she simply signed it because she thought it reflected the truth. However, it was pointed out that in the letter, Miss McMillan had misspelt her own name twice, and it was misspelt a different way. So it seems hardly likely that she would misspell her own name twice in a different misspelling. Sherborne then shows the judge a printout of McMillan's Instagram account, which is her full name, to show how she spells her last name, and it was not a match. Wow, if you're going to try to pull something like that, at least spell check. And then Sherborne pointed out the word bastardized, which was spelt in the American way, but Savannah is British, so there's that. And apparently the misspelling of McMillan in the letter matches Amber's misspelling of her name in her own affidavits, so... And then, of course, the instruction she gave Kate James to pay Savannah $1,600 sounds like what you would do for an employee. So I'm kind of sensing a pattern emerging here. The judge then asks, if Miss Heard stands by her message to the Department of Homeland Security, does it really matter if she drafted the letter or not? Well, Judge, it does matter because she testified under oath and by penalty of perjury that she did not write that letter. So if she did write that letter, that's perjury. While some might dismiss it as a small lie, not a big deal, it has to do with her credibility. If that was a lie, what else could also be a lie? And then Sherborne said that she probably denied writing the letter so she could have plausible deniability of its contents. Because if the contents of the letter itself are a lie and Savannah actually was her assistant, that would be considered fraud in the eyes of Homeland Security, and they don't play. That's no joke. So, all in all, I think that Mr. Sherborne's arguments were really good. They're very logical. I found myself being like, wow, work. Like, you know, he did a good job. But I found that he focused a bit too long on stuff that wasn't quite as important, that he really spent a lot of time hammering home during the trial. Like, at one point, he was talking a lot about the dogs. And I think even during the trial, the judge said he hadn't heard enough about the dogs, He talked about the puke, just like things where I think there was more important points that he could have gone in. I think he was going in a chronological order, from like how things happened as opposed to the importance. He definitely ran out of time. He could have probably used another half to full day, I'm sure. But to his defense, there were a ton of inconsistencies, tons of things to talk about. But both sides did prepare a written argument to give to the judge. So the judge will be able to review that. So in case whatever he didn't get to talk about, the judge will be able to see it in the argument. So it's not really that big of a loss. And apparently judgment will be made sometime in September. There was a ton of evidence. I'm guessing the judge wants to really review everything in depth. Everything was written down and I think audio recorded as well. So the judge will be able to go through everything with a fine-tooth comb. I definitely think the defense did the better job with the closing arguments. And the only thing I really noticed was the time issue. So yeah, I think who knows what could happen, but I think it does look good for Johnny. So we'll see. September just seems so far away at this point, but yeah, I'm really curious to see what happens. Comment down below. Let me know what you think is going to happen, your predictions. Let's talk about it. But yeah, I guess that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for being here and for watching and for all the lovely comments I've been receiving. And to all my new subscribers, thank you and welcome. Well, I'll see you soon, and thank you so much for being here. Take care. We'll talk soon, guys. Bye.